everyone, and welcome to the Dig Your Vibe podcast, where you learn all about how to have a more high vibrational lifestyle. My name is Nicole Veda, and today I'm joined by somebody who I have talked about in 2 of the 3 episodes that I have had so far, the amazing emotional mastery coach, Luciana Garcia.
Hello, Nicole. I am so happy and grateful to be able to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. I wanted to start off by just letting you know what a joy it is to have you on. You are such a prominent figure in the community here in El Paso and in my own spiritual journey. I talked about this in a previous episode, but the event that you hold, the Mind, Body, Soul Holistic Retreat, really was a huge catalyst in keeping me on the path that I was meant to follow. I'm sure many people could say the same. It's an amazing event, and you're such an amazing presence. So I'm so incredibly happy to have you on here.
No, thank you so much. And I'm actually excited that you're doing this project. I believe at some point in the past I have told you, hey, I don't know if you told me about it or how it happened, and I said bring it forward. So the moment you invited me and seeing you do this with so much joy and everything that you bring, it's beautiful. It truly is.
I really appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you. I'm grateful to finally have it going and finally have it on a roll now, and I'm so excited to have you as my first guest. So I want to start off by having you tell me, what is something that you do that helps you live a high vibrational lifestyle?
Ooh, I love that question. For me, it's going to sound a little cliche because this is really what I always talk about. But what helps me really live a life in high vibration is to not be afraid to face my painful emotions. For the longest time, I thought that if I felt a painful emotion, an emotion of sadness, of fear, I should run away from it and try to force myself to be grateful or be happy. But that never worked for me for a long time. And now I realize if I truly want to be in a vibration that is high, that it's in love and joy, I first have to be willing to see the part that hurts.
Oh.
And yes, and I really, this is what I teach and what I share with others, but this is also how I live my life every single day.
Oh, I love that. That it's so powerful to be able to sit with your emotions and to sit with something that's so uncomfortable, to be able to push past it. I think you're absolutely right. So many of the times we experience that pain or that discomfort, and we feel like, okay, what can I do to distract myself from this? What can I do to just kind of push, like, oh, forget about it. And it never works. It never works to do that. You really just to sit with it. That's so powerful.
Yes. And it's something that it's built slowly because nobody really teaches us how to deal with our emotions. This is something that nobody teaches us. We're all doing our best, and a lot of the times based on what we learned from people around us when we were growing up. But at some point, I find that we are reaching a point or a place in society where we are now giving ourselves permission to feel, or at least I feel that is something that I encourage people to do, to see that there's nothing wrong with facing our emotions and still being happy and still being spiritual or whatever it is we want to be. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Oh, absolutely. I love that you're saying that, because I had mentioned in a previous episode about how when I talk about digging your vibe, right? The whole purpose of living a high vibrational lifestyle, when we think of the word vibes, a lot of people will say like, oh, good vibes only, things like that. Like that's a common saying. And it's not really about that. It's about whatever vibration is most authentic to you in that moment and experiencing that. And it's okay to live in that. And it doesn't make you any less spiritual or any less of a happy person to have that moment.
Exactly. I'm so glad you're sharing that with your audience, because it's so true. And so many people find so much freedom in accepting that. It's like sometimes when they hear it, they go,
yes,
oh, okay. So there's nothing wrong with accepting that I have been struggling, right? feel sad sometimes or whatever may be going on. It's
Exactly.
important to talk about these things, I believe.
It really is. And I think it's something I want to say too that has slowly been something that's more accepted in our society in general, especially for men, to be able to accept your emotions and to show your emotions and not just have to be this perfect person all the time. You think a lot about the way that things used to be, the way that things were presented with like even like the old housewives, a very, very, you know, a person who's so perfect and almost robotic in the way that they handle things, and men that they had to stifle a lot of things. And I think that we're coming to an age, which is why we all chose to incarnate during this time, is we're coming to this age where we're all allowed to do that and we're learning to do it more together.
And we are ready.
Yes.
Like we may not think so sometimes, but I really believe we are ready to accept emotions and feeling and being human in all that that means completely. And
Yes.
through that process of accepting our humanness, discover our spirituality, because that's something that's really big for me, where I myself in my personal practice, and I even encourage this to my students, is don't use spirituality to run away from your human. And also don't pretend the only things of this world matter and only material things matter and push away your spirituality. It's finding that middle path between both. And I find that our emotions help keep us grounded in that matter, because no matter how much we want to pretend that everything's fine and we're happy all the time, when we feel something, when we're affected emotionally, it's there. I mean, we can deny it, but deep within, we know it's there.
Yes.
So,
oh, that's so powerful. I'm that. This is why I was so excited to have you on, because this topic is something that we really do need to be talking about right now. It's something that we need to be discussing, that our emotions are there, they're real, and they're okay to talk about, they're okay to feel. I'm so excited to be having this conversation. So I think something that a lot of us want to know, and something that I am always curious about, is what was there a specific situation, or was there something that gradually happened? What was that catalyst that put you on this journey to your Dharma?
for me, there was a big moment, but I will say that there was a big moment that brought a big awakening, followed by other ones that really took me deeper into that journey. And I always share, I grew up always being very sensitive with emotions, but not knowing how to manage them. So the only way that I knew how to cope with them was through food. So I was always severely overweight since I was a child, hiding behind all of that weight, trying to not take space by taking space. Very, very weird situation.
Yes.
But I never dealt with it. So this was something that was in the back, not enough to push me to awaken. But my big moment happened after I had my daughter. So I have an 11-year-old daughter.
Yes.
I experienced postpartum depression. And it was a very confusing time for me, because I was supposed to be so happy. I was internally, mentally, I would feel like this is such a good moment in my life, but I was feeling so many mixed emotions. Right after that is when I also became a single mother and decided to have a divorce. And so many emotions came to be. So this was the perfect time for me to, you would think, like, just right away begin working on them, and then everything was beautiful and happily ever after. But it wasn't like that. For most of us, life gets hard. And even though we know there's other options on how to deal with it, we go to the thing that has been our coping mechanism for so long.
Yes.
So you see me there, experiencing postpartum depression, going through a divorce, and how did I deal with it? Using food, going out with friends, and distracting myself.
Yes.
And I remember specifically one night, there was where no more amount of food, no more amount of distraction could keep me away from what I was feeling. I attended a class where somebody was talking about facing emotions. And that day, after I attended the class, I came home and I thought, this information is amazing.
Nice.
And then put it aside. Like I didn't apply it. I kept doing my thing, and like I was a victim of my pain.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, one night I said I can't take this anymore. And I remember I was sitting there, and it feels like a movie now, but I saw the papers that they gave me on that class, and I just got them, and I said, it's either me facing what I feel or just staying the same. Like I have to do something different. I remember what I did is that was the first time in my life that I surrendered to my emotions, where I stopped blaming other people for what I was feeling. I was feeling alone, rejected, abandoned, scared through this change. It was me that I was feeling it. And that day changed my life because of that, I decided to go and get my degree in holistic psychology. Because of that, I continue my path in my spirituality. Because of that, even today, when I have an emotion, I choose to surrender to it. But there was a lot of resistance, and I wanted to share this story just for anybody out there that may be struggling, that you have been trying. I want to remind you, it doesn't happen magically. Even if that day I made a decision, at the end of the day, for many times before that, I didn't. Like I went to classes and I didn't apply this stuff. I learned things, and then I forgot them. You know, it's like it's a process. Yes. But that time of my life, which is almost 10 years or 11 years ago, was life changing. And I'm grateful because now I am where I am today, and I can share it with other people.
Oh, that's so amazing. I want to really thank you for consistently being vulnerable and open to sharing the dark moments of your life. I think that as you know, when we talk to people, we want to open up to people and share with people about mastering our emotions and growing through them. We have to be willing to share them and show them ourselves, and showing people that we went through that time and went through that difficult position is so powerful. And so it just helps to make that connection between other people, to know that they weren't alone in that.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for
that.
Those
moments are dark, and when we're going through them, it feels very lonely, and we cannot, while we're in it, it's very difficult to see when it will be over. And I think that is the moment where we tap into our deep, deep, deep inner courage, or even faith in ourselves or in life, to just get through the next moment.
Yes.
You know, sometimes it's like, I don't know how I'm going to get through all of this, but I can get through this next emotion today, or this next moment. And then just taking it like that, one emotion at a time, one moment at a time.
Yes.
And eventually, before you know it, things have changed. And then you are a different person. But it's like that. It's a process.
It's those little steps, those little climbs that lead you to that top of the mountain, and suddenly you're looking down and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? Like, how did I climb so high? Because when you're in that process, it feels like you're just going and going and going, and all of a sudden you turn around and look back, and it's this amazing view of how far you've come.
Yes, and you know, something that happens in that process, because I see it like that, is like, first we do feel like we're in this deep, dark hole, and it's all horrible and dark, and you don't know how you will get out of it. And like we said, one step at a time, one day at a time, one emotion at a time. Yes. And then eventually you, like you said, you see yourself at the top of that mountain, looking back like, wow, I've gotten so far. And it's usually then when we realize at the same time that there was no mountain, that we were just going through different experiences in life, that they may come again. Because sometimes in that battle of, I need to constantly be better, we start losing ourselves in that. Like if we never arrive. But at some point, I do believe that we realize there is no mountain. I'm trying just my best today.
Yes.
And I feel this is something that many of us are experiencing right now, with so many changes happening in the world. Absolutely. Where we're just doing our best, like showing up every day, taking a little bit of moment to see like what we can do today, and then just take it from there.
Oh, absolutely. It's something that we also talked about in I think that was a really big deal for me. We had talked about at the Mind, Body, Soul retreat this year, was kind of choosing in that moment that you can either, that choice to suffer or that choice to, am I going to enjoy this moment? Am I going to wait to enjoy it, or am I going to enjoy it right now in every moment? And I lent that over to another situation. I was having a conversation with a friend, and I was sharing that I had learned about, and we were talking about treating every moment as a ceremony, and treating every moment as, and treating every day as a retreat. Because we have that moment, we have that time in our lives where we're like, okay, I'm in this retreat, oh, it's so beautiful, and then it's like, oh, let's go back to our real lives. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, the whole thing, it's all part of it. It's all part of it.
Yes, yes. That reminds me so much of something that I remember my meditation master, he said once after our retreat.
Mm-hmm.
There was this, feeling of like just what you described. Like we're all right now very conscious, very
Mm-hmm.
aware because we're doing spiritual work, emotional work, and we're respecting the room that we're in because that is the temple. And then the moment it's over, like it's like you completely forget that and become a whole other person. And
Yes.
he said exactly what you said. Your life is your retreat or your
Mm-hmm.
seminar, and your body, which we've heard this many times, is your temple.
Yes.
So nothing's ever missing. Now, the ceremony thing, I had never heard it, and I love it.
Oh.
Take every moment like a ceremony, right?
Mm-hmm. Every
Live
moment.
each moment like a ceremony. I love it.
It's been something. She said that she had been doing it. She said that she had adopted that mindset years ago, and it's something that had changed her life. Just every moment as a ceremony, and we were doing something as simple as, I think we were. What were we? We were cooking, and I can't remember what we were cooking. I don't know what we were preparing. I don't even remember anymore. But it was such a beautiful moment, just being there all together, creating something, and sharing in our experiences to make that meal. And it was a ceremony. It was just cooking, but it was a ceremony. It was beautiful.
I love it. And if you think about it, I am a believer that we are all powerful creators, regardless if we are aware of that, if we label ourselves as that or not. So this that you are sharing, I'm really feeling it. This feeling that even while we are like with friends cooking, or sometimes alone going through an emotion, and I keep going back to that, but because it's so real, we can accept that moment as if it was a ceremony, because we are creating our life and our healing and our transformation in that moment.
Absolutely.
What a beautiful way to see it. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. No, I really like this connection that's being made, though. The connection even between just every moment of our lives being a ceremony, but every emotion that we feel being a ceremony. And sitting with those emotions. That's beautiful. I really like that.
Imagine how differently we would approach a situation if we see it in this way. And you can find whatever word, if somebody's listening and you don't connect with the word ceremony, which I really do, but if you don't, but find a word that represents that moment where you value and care for something simply for what it is, with presence. Imagine if we had that attitude facing life, we wouldn't feel so much as if life is against us the moment something difficult comes up. And it's one of the biggest things that I love about the teachings of the Buddha. So with the teachings of the Buddha, there's something that people call the Four Noble Truths. And one of them, the first one, is there is suffering. So this acceptance that in life there is experience of pain and suffering. The last noble truth is there is no suffering. So when people, and I'm going to right now say the two in the middle, but when people just hear like a cute quote on Facebook, like there is no suffering, we began to use that as an excuse to deny our pain. What he was really teaching us is, step one, accept that you are affected by life. That sometimes when things happen, you explode in anger, or you feel sad, or you are afraid. First, accept there is pain and suffering being in this world. The second noble truth is I become aware of my suffering. And I'm explaining this in a very modern way, but it's I become aware of it. So I acknowledge it's there, and I become aware there is suffering. The third noble truth is I embrace it and work through it and try to grow from it. Which, when I do that work, is kind of arriving at the top of that mountain and realizing, oh, there was no mountain. I was just growing. And it's the same, like, there is no suffering. When you finally use that pain to grow, at some point it goes away and it's not a lie. It's, oh, there is no suffering. And it's beautiful. I find that it kind of relates to all of this that we're talking about.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, that really resonates with me, because you have to get to that moment. You have to go through the experience to grow, and it's so difficult to see it when you're there. We talk a lot about how, like you were talking about, very cute sayings and quotes on Facebook. There was one, I went through a really difficult situation this past year, and there was one, regardless, just really resonated with me, that said, you think that you've been buried, but you've really been planted. And I connect that with what you're saying in terms of that hole that you find yourself in, when it's not really, oh, I was in this bad situation and then I rose above it. It's all the same situation. It's all part of it. It's all the same experience. But that suffering that you have to go through is necessary for the growth. It is, there is eventually no mountain. You're there at the top. But if you don't have to, if you don't go through that journey, that struggle to get there, there's no journey, essentially.
Yes. And it's so interesting just talking about this, how it really begins to change our perception. I find that when we talk, for example, about the soul, I see that the soul is the part of us that simply wants to grow and evolve. I always say that when we go through like a heartbreak, right? Like the human goes like, oh my God, not again. Like, oh, heartbreak sucks. But the soul goes like, yes, another opportunity to grow. So the soul is like this part of us that, because it's limitless, because it exists in everything, is not afraid to taste all experiences, even the ones that are painful, and even the ones that are pleasurable. The human, because we live emotion through our nervous system, when it hurts, we go, that was a bad one. When it feels good, we go, that was a good one. And learning to see that is also part of the process. Sometimes there will be resistance because our human, how I say it has a hard time processing the painful emotion. But deep at the core within all of us, I believe that if an experience comes into our life, our soul was ready to live it. And growth will come out of it.
Absolutely.
Regardless of if it's painful. Like it may take a shorter time or less time if we don't resist as much, but growth will come.
Absolutely. I like that you touch on that. There's I have a really strong feeling that we're never given something that we can't handle. And we're never given anything. It's what I tell myself in every situation that I go through. I'm never going to be given something that is not for me, or that is not going to lead me to the path, to my dharma, to my journey, to the path to my highest self. Which is a very powerful thing to me, because then I say, okay, I'm going through this moment, but that must mean that it's leading me to something better, or it's leading me to some growth or some truth that I wasn't aware of previously that I need to be aware of.
Yes. And it's almost like having that attitude of a child, of not in an immature way, but the innocence of, like, when a child goes into like a playground or something, they just run and they want to discover everything. Like they're so open. As adults, if we go to a playground, maybe we're worried if like there's too much sand or too much sun, or who's here, or people looking at me, or whatever, right? And I find that having that attitude of, no matter what I'm going through right now, I see it as an opportunity to grow, or to connect me, or take me to my higher self, or connect me with that energy. Then we begin to open up, like, how can I grow from this? It really changes that attitude.
Yes. And are these some of the things that you find helpful when you were on the journey to learning to master your own emotions? Were these some of the ideals that you felt helped you to get there?
Yes, actually, yes. I would say the first thing was to really be open to see things differently. Because when you start the process of beginning to learn how to observe your emotions, it's not always, like I mentioned before, it's not always pleasant. So a lot of the times we start with this idea, okay, I'm going to start observing my emotions to make sure I get rid of them. You know, like this idea of like, still, okay, I'm going to do the work, but not because I care to discover, not because I care to grow, because I want to get rid of it. So at the beginning, one of the biggest things for me was the work that I did to change that belief and see it in, I don't know what I'm going to discover from this sadness, or for example, the deep abandonment that I was going through after my divorce.
Yes.
But it was understanding I don't need to get rid of it. I need to be open to discover how I can grow from it. So that was the main thing. And that is something that I would encourage anybody maybe starting in this journey. And maybe you say, okay, all of you are talking so much about emotions, but how do you even start doing that? I say first, just have a willingness to grow, to tell yourself, just the attitude that you expressed right now. How can I grow from this? Or I don't even know how I'm going to grow from this. But if it has manifested in my life, I'm open to learn how. As simple as that.
That's great. That's wonderful. We talk a lot. The term that I hear a lot when we're talking about mastering our emotions is emotional integration. Can you talk a little bit about what that means, not only in general but to you as well?
Oh, emotional integration. Well, first I'm going to explain it in general.
Yes.
It is a practice of what I call the mindfulness of emotions. So it's not just a meditation, and it's not just a form of therapy to talk about emotions. It's like in the middle ground where you learn to observe your emotions consciously, almost as if you were in a state of meditation, embracing them. This is something that a lot of people, the moment they hear it, oh, emotional integration, it has to come from a background in psychology. I always share how it actually comes more from a background of meditation. And a lot of martial artists used to use this because the martial artists used to train their bodies to be like in perfect shape to be able to confront an opponent. But the masters would teach them that if they did not have mastery over their emotions, the moment they were in front of an opponent and fear came up, anger came up, hatred, whatever emotion, their body would not respond the same. The moment an emotion is active in your body, your chemistry changed.
Yes.
So the master would invite them, sit with that fear until you learn to embrace it, integrate it in who you are, and you have mastery over it. But that is where the misconception happens. Oh, mastery means it never comes back. No, as long as you are alive, all of us, we will experience emotion. So if you go through a situation that brings up fear, working through it, through observing it or practicing emotional integration will be to resolve the pressure, the pain, the resistance that the emotion brings up. So then that situation would be resolved. So let's say if it's about, I'm afraid of following my dreams and starting a business. You sit down, you sit with the fear, you work through it, you integrate it so you can still take the steps and start your business. Now, what I'm trying to get to is at some point in life, you will feel fear again. So that's why it's called mastery and not like destroying emotions. It's more, you're going to master how to deal with them when they come up because you spend time with them. So that is the general description. And it's really at the core of what I teach. But for me personally, it's like the relationship with emotional integration for me feels like family. I don't know how to explain it, but the concept of it has been my life, at the core of my life, the center of what I did for so long to feel better personally, and what I've done for 7 years to share with others.
Yes.
That just when I hear the term, it feels very personal, very intimate, and it actually brings me happiness.
Oh, lovely.
That would be the emotion.
Oh, that's so lovely. It's really wonderful to have something that that connects with you like that. I think for me, that's why I decided to do Dig Your Vibe. I told you last year with that idea of living a high vibrational lifestyle really resonated with me and really felt close to me. So I love that you talk about how it's something that's close to you and personal to you. It's not just a concept. It's not just something that you learned about. It's not this technical thing only. Like it's something that you can feel very close to. Oh, that's beautiful. It's really wonderful. So with emotional integration, beyond just like sitting with your emotions, when someone gets there to that point where they feel like, okay, I'm sitting with these emotions, I'm sitting with my fear, and I can't, because of course you said that the whole idea behind it is I can't move past it. What would you say, what advice would you give how to get past that mindset, or how to get past the idea, or what to do with it? I know it's to integrate it, but how would you explain what to do with that?
Yes, at the beginning, for somebody that may be just hearing this for the first time, the first part of actually sitting with emotion, the reason why it's difficult for some people, it's because it's so easy. Because there's not like a huge secret around it. Now, in order to do it, what I encourage people, it's actually to take some time to sit, literally sit down, and begin to pay attention to your breath. Every time that we bring our attention to our breath, we're bringing it from the outside, from everything that's worrying us to within, inside, the place where we are feeling the emotion. And the first step is identify the emotion, but first at a physical level. Like when you are afraid, do you feel a tightness in your stomach, a pressure in your chest, a heaviness in your throat? First start there, because if we don't have practice observing emotion, it feels like a very random concept. I tell people, look at your fear, and they're like, where? And they look around the room, like, where is it? Like, no, it's inside. Like, so find a physical place where you can first begin to tap into the flavor. When I feel fear, this is what my body does, because that is part of the holistic work. We're talking a lot about emotions, but emotions affect our body. Emotions affect our mind. Then from there, when you find the fear, you move to the place of actually letting yourself feel it more than physically, also emotionally. And that is different for all of us. And when you're sitting there with it for a while, the trick that I tell people is that we find the fear, we are feeling it, but then we do what we all know how to do very, very good, which is we go into our mind. So you know how I told you, go to your body first.
Yes.
The moment we find it, we go back to our mind and the story around the fear. So, oh, I'm so afraid because I know that nobody's going to like me, because I remember when I was younger, people used to tell me. We go through this huge story and we stop feeling. So the goal here is to practice what I call, something that I teach in my Emotional Mastery Experience program, is something called the surrender breath. And it's to connect with your breath, inhaling and exhaling with a sound, letting yourself accept that no matter what the story is around your emotion, if you want to heal it, you have to surrender the story and feel. So I could feel rejection for like 20 different thousand reasons, no matter how much I think about it, no matter who in my life awakened the emotion. Maybe somebody said a comment on social media and I felt rejection. If I truly want to heal, and this is a moment of empowerment, I have to let go of the story and accept me, Luciana, I feel rejected, and surrender. So this is where I feel people get lost with the practice. They tell me, I sat with the emotion of fear for an hour, Luciana, and nothing happened. And then I start asking them, and how did you do it, or what happened? It's I couldn't stop thinking how they did this to me. Oh, okay. So it's like the more you hold on to the story, the less that we process it. And if you think about it, this has a lot to do with not just emotion, but it's spirituality.
Yes.
It's almost as if the moment you surrender the story, you surrender the ego, and you allow your soul to be present with the pain.
Yes.
That is when the transformation happens. If we're too tight and holding on to the story, we're still very into the human, and all of that. And that is what can be harder. So I hope this made sense. That was a little bit of a long answer,
that's perfect. I like that because it plays into that whole it's that whole victim mentality of this person did this to me and they're the reason they caused this feeling that I'm feeling. And it's like the person, it's something that another thing that I learned at the Mind Body Soul retreat was that person's responsible for their actions. They're not responsible for your feelings. And
and this can sound sometimes a little hard because I am well aware that sometimes people do some things in life that are very wrong, you know, and this process, remember, it's an emotional healing process. It does not substitute um, making sure you are safe or allowing people to cross boundaries. But when it's not about that, it's just about how you feel.
Yes.
I want you to think about how every time that you have felt an emotion, and just ask yourself, where did you feel it? Like, where did you feel the emotion? And when we stop and think about it, we felt it inside of ourselves. So I always explain this, like, nobody came, that person that we are blaming, they didn't come and inject us with like rejection. Like, they didn't bring the rejection from the outside and put it in. It awakened. It's like the rejection was there.
Yes.
That comment awakened it. That's why it's called emotional mastery, because I am trying to master the emotions within me that may potentially be dormant and they're like hiding, and just life events are awakening them.
Yes.
And when we learn this, we reach a point where we even feel grateful for the people that show us that. Like, maybe if it's somebody that's crossing too many boundaries, they may not stay in our life for too long.
Of course,
but you'll be like, you know what? I am so grateful that person helped me see something in me that maybe I did not have resolved. And I actually want to give a little bit of an example. This week, I think it was this week or last week, somebody posted on Facebook something along the lines of, if you leave a little dot in the comments, I will tell you straight up what I think about you. And you know that if you comment to that, you're just looking for, you're just looking to be triggered, right? Because you're telling somebody, just give it to me and tell me what you think, right? But so I did it. I don't know. I'm like, okay, let's do this. And the person said something that was actually nice, but it triggered me. It said, you truly inspired me, but you're still very fragile. So it's not insulting. The person is actually a very good person. I actually like that person a lot. It's somebody supportive. And the moment that person said it, it was an interesting thing, because I said right now it triggered me. It did not offend me. I didn't see it as anything negative, but the trigger was that I realized that I had never observed how I was still relating fragile with weakness, with something negative. Fragile is just a word.
Yes.
Fragile does not have the power of anything. I felt affected emotionally because I had an emotion not resolved around that topic. So I had to sit there and integrate and observe, what do I feel? Oh, I related with weakness. Oh, when I feel weak, I feel not enough or rejected. And I did some emotional work that I would have never done, because that's not a word that I think about.
Yes.
And at the end, I just felt so grateful for that person and for the fact that they used that word.
Yes.
And at the end, I actually started loving the word. I realized, actually, I see fragile as something that lets itself be vulnerable, that it's not afraid to show itself fully. And I said, actually, I am that. Like, that is how I live my life.
I really like that.
So anyways, just an example. So if anybody can relate to that.
I really like that. Isn't there a bravery to exist and to continue to put yourself in situations? I think about something like even just like a glass container, right? And the bravery to exist and to continue to go through experiences in the world, knowing that you have the potential to break.
Yeah.
And I love that, because if you don't have that, if you're not fragile, which, I mean, we all have that ability. We all have the ability to break, so we all go through that. But if you don't have that mindset where you're like, oh, I'm indestructible, there's less of a bravery there. There's less of putting yourself out there, because you're just like, oh, I'm fine. But if you know very well that this is something that I can experience and you're still out there, ooh, that's powerful.
I love that. And I love that you use the word that we could all break, and really connecting fragile to that, because it's true. There is a fear behind not wanting to seem fragile because we don't want to break. And there's nothing wrong with breaking because
No.
it helps us grow. It's how we rebuild ourselves. So, and now this is just an example how so many things out there, especially right now, it is very like a popular thing to say everybody gets offended so easily.
Yeah.
And sometimes we do, right? Or you go on social media and you just see people arguing for hours in the
Mm-hmm.
comments of whatever may be going on.
Yes.
And I find that that is one of the biggest things in how we can empower ourselves. Remember, words cannot hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
They can simply awaken within you what you haven't been wanting to see. The thing is, are you going to allow it, or do you rather fight back to not see it? And that is when, and of course, if somebody's ever, like I said, disrespectful, set boundaries, because I'm all for that. It's never about, okay, I'm just going to sit here and let somebody like disrespect me. But outside of that, sometimes the things that trigger us are not even directed to us.
Exactly.
Somebody's saying it about somebody else,
and you're like,
we take it personally.
Hey. Absolutely. I mean, even in you're very right. There's people that we experience in our lives where they put us through a situation, and like you said, maybe they're consistently crossing our boundaries. So that's maybe it's time to let that person out of your life, to not allow that person to continue to enter your space and to cross those boundaries. But there was still a reason, there was still a purpose for them being in your life and for them teaching you that, and to have that gratitude that even the bad experiences that you go through are meant for you and are only meant to raise you up higher is a really powerful way to live.
Yes. Yes.
And
this is such a good conversation.
It's so good. I that's why every time I always love talking to you, and I was so excited to have you on here because I was like, this is always amazing conversation. Even when we're just on break at the retreat and we're just talking, I'm like, this is something that somebody should bottle because it's amazing. Oh my goodness. So just in finishing up, is there any final piece of advice that you would like to impart on our community?
One of the things that I would say to anybody listening to this is to not be afraid of your emotions. I mean, very cliche going back to it, but don't be afraid of them. Choose to be the leader right now in how you deal with life. We no longer have to deal with things how our parents or our grandparents or others are doing it. Use what you're going through to be your own master. In spirituality, we talk about the master and the teacher. We are all just learning to be our own masters and learning from ourselves. And if you can allow your emotions to be that for you, why not? Yes. And remember, always through balance. An emotional integration session always ends with you focusing and filling your heart with gratitude and appreciation, connecting with joy, the joy of being alive, connecting with love, and how life always takes care of us, even through our most difficult times. Our heart keeps beating, our lungs keep reaching for air. There is so much love. So this is not a practice of torture. This is, I learn to feel the painful emotions so I can live from my emotions of joy, of love, of appreciation. So, yes.
Oh, so powerful. I love it. I'm just so excited. I'm so happy that this is getting out there. I just keep thinking about all the people who are going to hear this and just getting this message out there. I'm so excited. I really want to thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and your intuition that you have in regards to mastering your emotions. Like I said before, I was just so excited to have you on because my first guest, because you were my main introduction to emotional integration. And the amount of tears that I've shed at those retreats and the feelings that I felt afterwards were so powerful. I just wanted my community to have the same experience with you. So thank you so much.
Yes, it has been an honor to be here. I do want to share, if anybody wants to start practicing how to observe their emotions, I do have a complete free masterclass on my website. If you want to take a little bit of time and maybe learn how to apply this that we talked about And you can find it by just going to the emotionalmasterycoach.com. Also, if you have questions about anything, of course, you, Nicole, we're always in touch.
Yes, we
but
are.
Anybody, just questions that may come up, all this conversation may awaken wanting to know more.
Yes.
You can always find me also on social media under the Emotional Mastery Coach. I'm always there.
Awesome. I really suggest that everybody who's listening to this right now go and check it out, because she posts absolutely amazing content. And even just going and following her, you're going to have access to these videos that are so good and so helpful to the current situation. I think it will definitely help you through the sort of the current time that we're going through. So I would definitely suggest that. Like Luciana said, if you have any questions for me or for her, either go to her page or to my page, visit the Dig Your Vibe Instagram page at Dig Your Vibe, and go ahead and leave them in the comments for this episode. You can also send me an email at digyourvibe@yahoo.com. If you have any stories about mastering your emotions, please send them to me to my email as well, and I would love to hear them and possibly share them on a future episode. So I will be tagging Luciana's page on the Instagram post as well, and linking her amazing website, so I highly encourage you to check it out. If you have any time, please leave me a review on whatever platform that you found me on, so that other people can find this podcast and join the journey with us. Luciana, thank you again for joining joining us on this amazing journey as well. It's really, really wonderful to have you here. And
thank you so much.
Yes.
This was amazing.
Thank you. And as always, I thank you, my community, for coming on this journey with me. The light in me honors the beautiful, bright, and brilliant light in you. Namaste.